WDEN, good morning. It's Laura Starling. Travis is here. Yay, Travis made it to work this morning. Fantastic. And also our special guest this morning, Ricky Layton is here. More applause, more applause.
Yeah. Good morning, everybody.
The man, the legend.
Ricky is the Coke Man. That's what I call him, the Coke Man, Ricky the Coke Man. But also, he is a fisherman extraordinaire. So I want to talk a little bit about, first of all, you've been with Coca-Cola almost as long as I've worked at WDEN.
39 years. Yeah.
39 years.
Yep.
So you're about 3 or 4 years behind me. And so we've known each other and seen each other forever. But I did find out in the last 6 months some things I didn't know about you. And that is that you are really an extraordinary fisherman.
I have. I've done it for a long time. Been blessed enough to be around a lot of great people. Coming up, my dad, started me when I was really young. My brother and myself, and we fished, pretty much all of our life. And then somewhere around 17 years old, started fishing tournaments, bass tournaments, and I really got involved with it heavily and started traveling a lot with that.
So you were out doing bass tournaments. You were making money. I mean, people do make a living fishing.
Yeah, I would never say I made a bunch of money, but it was a lot of fun. I was trying to make money. I was lucky enough to get far enough in it where I had a boat sponsor. Ranger Boats was sponsoring me, and I had rod sponsors and some tackle sponsors. So they were helping me. Of course, my mom and my dad always helped me out, and my wife, gave me the time to do it. So it was a lot of fun chasing that dream, and it got to the point where, I was traveling pretty much all over the Southeast, fishing tournaments every week, and would leave, Friday afternoon as early as I could, and sometimes take vacations to fish tournaments. But it got to be when the kids come up and you started missing ball or something. That was just not my calling, to miss anything my kids were doing. So that's when I kind of hung it up. So,
you wanted to be home and go into the Little League games and all those kind of things. But I have another friend who is, I guess he's a semi-professional fisherman over in Mississippi. And it is a lot of work. It's not just, hey, you go out and, cast your line, and it's a lot of work involved in it.
It is. It's a lot of study now, and nowadays the kids coming up, it's they're so much more advanced than we ever were because of because of YouTube, the internet, magazines, everything that they can watch now, and it just seems like they're getting the electronics so much faster than we did. We dealt with much older electronics, and nowadays everything's live where you can see the fish actually moving around down below you on live scope. So it's there's been a big learning curve with some of the older fishermen trying to get adapted to this, but I think it's good for the sport in a way that it keeps promoting the sport, but you got to be careful that we're not just one-dimensional, fishing out there, that we're still being able to do everything, that people came up doing, shallow fishing, deep fishing, everything. So
I know a lot of schools now have fishing teams.
Right, the high schools,
That's so cool.
It is. I mean, you can actually go to college now on a college scholarship for fishing teams, and it's been that way for probably about 8 or 10 years, but it just keeps growing.
So when somebody's out in a fishing tournament, let's just say that there's a big fishing tournament on Lake Juliet. So you're allowed to use the things that show you the fish under the water.
Right. That's your electronics. Most boats have, most of your bigger bass boats have 2 graphs up front and 2 graphs on the dash. And, that's what you're marking everything with. You're actually marking fish. You're marking structure, water temperature. This all comes into play trying to figure out, where the fish will be at certain times. If you're a bass fisherman, you kind of know during the season where they should be, but they're always going to be chasing bait. So that's what you want to find is where the bait is. It's just like, where do you find the most people in the afternoon? Is at the restaurant. They're eating. So the fish are out there to eat. They're not out there playing around. So they're going to chase wherever that bait is. So sometimes it'll surprise you where they're at. You could be middle of the summertime and find them shallow where they should be deep. So it's a study, and it's always a puzzle. everybody that I used to talk to used to ask me why you couldn't catch fish. I was in a pond yesterday and caught them. Well, you're in a pond. They're in one
contained.
small area.
Right,
yeah.
right.
You get in a lake that's 50,000, you got 15, 20,000 square miles around that you got to go find fish. You got to go find them on ledges, or are they shallow in the grass? Are they hitting crankbaits? They hitting topwater? And you're bringing in your best 5 fish for most tournaments. So you want to catch the 5 biggest fish that you could possibly catch each day. So
I was looking up some stuff on the internet about you and your fishing, and I found all kinds of articles in the Georgia Outdoor News. I found some YouTube videos where you were mapping the lake. What does mapping the lake mean?
That's actually Ronnie Garrison does with Georgia Outdoor News. He does a fantastic job every month. He takes an angler and goes out on the lake with him. And the problem is, a lot of times you're writing an article for the following month. So sometimes it's a little difficult to catch the fish on the pattern that you're going out. I've been lucky enough to do a jigging spoon article on Lake Oconee during the wintertime, and then a springtime Sinclair. That's probably the one you saw is springtime Sinclair.
Yes.
And we went out actually the month before the article was coming out, and I would show him places that shad should spawn in. So a big time of the year in the spring is when shad spawn. That's when the small bait fish comes up to the bank, and they actually lay their eggs on the bank. Well, this is a fantastic time to catch bass because the bass come up to feed on them. So we mapped places that those fish would usually show up, so that your angler that wants to read that magazine and he's not familiar with Lake Sinclair, he could use some of those spots to go out and get a head start. So he's not just going out there blind. They've actually got the GPS coordinates on there. So he can go straight out there, go straight to those spots, and that kind of gives him an idea of what's going on. And if he's successful, he can duplicate that across the lake. So
there are some tournaments that pay some big money.
Oh, yes. They your major tournaments right now, BASS and Major League Fishing all pay $100,000 usually for first place. Their championships pay $300,000. So, yes, there is money to be made out there, but there's a lot of money spent, too.
So if your kid wants to go fishing every weekend and they tell you they want to major in fishing in college, take them serious.
Oh, yeah.
If they're a
definitely.
good fisherman. Because
they could get a free ride to college, and that could be their career,
That's right.
Yeah.
All right, Ricky Layton, our special guest this morning. We'll come back and talk some more later on this in this hour here on WDEN. Number one country, 99 WDEN at 7:43. Hey, it's Laura Sterling. Travis hanging out this morning. Morning, Travis.
Good morning.
And Ricky Layton here with us this morning. How are you?
Oh, doing great this morning. How are you?
It is great to see you always. We've been talking about fishing because even though you have a real job, we all have a real job and then something else we do, right?
Yeah, you got to have your hobbies. So.
And, and actually fishing is a hobby for you, but it could have been a career. Because you are a really, really good fisherman. And again, I want to tell everybody you can see Ricky's, you can see him on some YouTube videos, and you can also see some articles that he's been featured in Georgia Outdoor News about fishing. If you want to check him out, it's Layton. It's the last name, Ricky Layton. And we've just been talking about fishing. And how is fishing at this time of the year? When it's really hot.
Yeah, it's a little tough. The water temperature gets up mid 80s and everything slows down a little bit. And what we've got on the lakes, Lake Sinclair and Lake Oconee, is actually a power dam that's in between them. And they actually produce power by hydroelectric. And it's what they do is pump water back and forth between the two lakes to create power. So early in the morning's really good. Usually they pump, sometimes before daylight up until about 9 or 10 o'clock. And then, they'll shut the power off, and it gets really tough because what happens is the fish get accustomed to the water bringing the bait to them. Instead of them having to work so hard for something, they'll sit on a ledge or a break or a grass line, and that current actually brings fish to them, and it makes it a lot easier to catch them. So late in the afternoon, same way, usually 3 o'clock, they'll start producing power again, and the water kicks up, and you can definitely notice that it gets a lot easier to catch the fish. So, but they are deep, a lot of them are deep. And what's happened here in the last couple of weeks has actually helped the fishing because the lakes had gotten so clear with no rain. Everything had gotten, I like a stained water to try to fool the fish, because it presents your bait where they're not seeing everything. They might be working off of vibration or off of impulse or something. So what the stained water does is get where the fish can't see the bait as good,
right.
And you can fool them a little bit easier. So a lot of the back of your creeks have stained up a little bit since this rain's come in, so it'll help your grass bite, your topwater frog bite, your swim jig bite. Something early in the morning, late in the afternoon, topwater will do really well. And but it's kept the main lake clear. So if you're wanting to catch crappie, get on brush piles, somewhere in 30 foot of water. And 30 to 50 foot of water. We catch a lot of them on standing timber. There's a lot being caught on brush piles. So it's just kind of what you want to fish, what kind of fish you want to target. But everything still bites. It just may slow down during the heat of the day. It's just like, a fish is just like us. They don't like it. They don't like it when it gets super hot. So
when people are fishing in tournaments, is it important what they're wearing? And I mean, do all those things count? Does it really matter? Can the fish see you?
No, it doesn't matter. We call them scare patches sometimes. A lot of times people will put a bunch of patches on the shirt thinking they're, they're sponsored. But it really can be very important. It's funny you brought that up. But it's a long story. But there was a tournament, a national championship I was fishing in Mobile, Alabama, that I did not have the right patch on my shirt. I misunderstood some directions from the tournament officials and from my sponsor, and thought I had the right things on my shirt. I ended up being the top qualifier for Ranger Boats to win a brand new boat. And at the end of the tournament, it was decided that I didn't have the patch on my shirt in the right place, so I didn't win the boat. So it cost me a boat, but it was a learning experience, and good things come from it. The guy that won it ended up staying in professional fishing. He stayed in professional fishing forever. I mean, he's still there.
Yeah.
And I was sponsored by Ranger already, getting a boat every year. So, things work out for a reason. I look at it that way. It was hard at the time. It was a hard pill to swallow. But, yeah, it is important. If you have sponsors that are paying your way or they're wanting you to promote their product, it's not necessarily off what you're winning. It's how you sell their product. So you might not ever win a tournament, but if you're a good spokesperson for their product and you can send business their way, that's where a lot of these guys are getting their sponsorships from. So,
and I wanted to say too. Well, let me ask you this: what is the biggest fish you've ever caught?
I think I had one just a little over 11 pounds. We were actually fishing in a private lake in South Georgia on a quail plantation one time. And I had some customers out. Coca-Cola had taken some customers down there, and we went out in the morning before the quail hunt and caught one 11.2. I think that's the biggest fish I ever caught. And I actually released that fish after getting pictures, and couldn't believe the ladies up in the cabin that were cooking for us. They actually watched it, and I caught an earful when I come back. They didn't believe couldn't believe I released that fish.
But you released it.
Yeah, it was just a beautiful fish. It needed to go back. So.
Do you have a fish mounted at home?
I do. I've got one out of Lake Juliet that weighed 9.5 pounds, I think, that I caught, and I actually mounted it, and that was the reason I didn't keep the 11-pounder, because I already had this fish mounted, and there's really no reason to put a bunch of fish on the wall. So the pictures will last a lifetime, and that fish is out there for somebody else to catch. So.
And we were talking about the fact that kids now in high school are on fishing teams, and that there are actually scholarships available for college for fishing.
Yes. If your kid shows any interest in it, get them out there, get them involved. Make it where they're successful, though. Don't just take them out in the heat and fish for 8 hours and not catch anything. Make it where they're successful. There's ways to go out there and catch fish, whether you're brim fishing, whether you're catfishing. I mean, I've always told people, if you want to take a kid fishing and they can catch something, go to a lake, get you some shrimp, cut them up in small pieces, and drop them to the bottom on a 30-foot ledge this time of year, and they can catch fish all day long, and that sparks their interest, and maybe they don't. Maybe that just starts them off, and then you move them to bass fishing or move them to something else, but that gets them out there where they're really enjoying themselves, and that might be their passion. So.
I think it's a cool thing that fishing teams are now a part of a lot of different high school curriculum, and that there is an opportunity to make money doing something that you love that.
Definitely. The high school teams and the college team, these organizations have done such a great job. They're giving huge scholarships. When these guys go in and win these tournaments or place high in these tournaments, they're getting scholarship money. Not only is the school already helping them out but the college kids are getting scholarship money, helping pay off their scholarships too. So it's a win-win for them, and the knowledge that they're gaining, they're actually coming out. I can show you 10 or 12 pros right now, these young boys that fresh out of college that are kicking everybody else's tail because they're so much more advanced, this day. So
isn't that something?
Yep.
And there are so many videos on YouTube. I mean, there's all kinds of ways to truly learn about being a great fisherman.
Yeah. Anything you want to know is on the internet. So if there's a certain technique, and I would suggest if you're going out there and just go out there with that certain technique. If you want to learn how to throw a swim jig, just go out there with a swim jig all day long. Don't throw anything else until you learn it, and then move on to the next one. So,
all right, Ricky, thanks for coming in this morning. It's always good to see you.
I really enjoyed it.